Welcome to the CoDesign studio. We are the Melusi group of 2023. Enjoy this presentation. I would now like to introduce my team. On your left, you have myself, Nina Barnard. To the right, Grant Cannon, David Coe, Apelele Ndlovu, Emil Roux, and Ilanka Wiltz. On our content page, you can refer back to all of our stages.
Prior to 1994, the South African population was excluded from decision-making. Therefore, community participation is an empowering tool which addresses previous exclusion. Co-design is an approach based on the belief that all people are creative in their own way and have the ability to contribute to design if provided with the appropriate setting and tools, which makes for a collaborative design approach. The value of co-design lies throughout the process because it creates opportunity for new relationships and knowledge exchange to form, producing appropriate and sustainable solutions. In co-designing, individuals become spatial agents. According to Nishat Awan, spatial agency is the ability of individuals to shape and transform their physical environments and effect change throughout the empowerment of others. In doing so, space is understood as not just the physical, but includes the intangible, like the social and political aspects of space. It is important to note that agency does not just occur, but rather is a physical act that requires careful consideration. Both co-design and spatial agency highlight the active role of individuals and communities in shaping their physical environment to address social and environmental changes and create inclusive and sustainable spaces through engagement, participation, and local knowledge. The spectrum is a visual representation of individuals changing roles with spatial agency and co-design. The primary authorship speaks to the relationship between the designer and the client, whereby the designer takes the subordinate role and total authority over decision-making. On the other hand, by definition, a facilitator makes the process viable and smoother. In this context, a facilitator assists in the design and management of the total planning process. Co-design and spatial agency explains the shift of the architect from author to facilitator, which emphasizes a switch from a top-down approach to a bottom-up. This shift in perspective acknowledges that there is power in the collective and in collaborative thinking. According to Henry Lefebvre's proposed understanding of urban space, this lack of engagement undermines a fundamental aspect of human activity. This cannot, therefore, be separated from the more technical skills required of spatial professionals.
This slide explains the position of Melusi in the context of South Africa and Gauteng as a province. And zooming in a bit deeper, this map shows Melusi in the context of the city of Pretoria in Gauteng, one of the South African provinces. And zooming in a bit more, this map shows the surrounding context within Melusi.
Melusi is divided into three sectors. This includes green spaces, the Melusi Dam, and wetlands. Maido is situated in Melusi 2.
During our Quarter 1 analysis in Melusi, we gathered data in different categories of livelihood in Melusi. We looked at the needs for small-scale food production, effective construction knowledge, and sustainable sourcing of material, as well as the need for effective preparation for extreme weather and the need for employment and financial stability. The main needs we focused on was the need for communal gathering spaces and places, as most of the community met on street corners. We could also identify that the community group with the most participants was church groups. This Quarter 1 data informed our main concept, but because we solely relied on donations from stakeholders, the materials informed the main design. So, why did we choose Maido? The Melusi Youth Development Organization helps the youth of Melusi complete their education, finds jobs, and invites all youth to participate in self-help workshops to improve their livelihoods. The Network Communication Protocol was established to create a structured agenda for all parties involved. We explained that our conceptual aim for the project is to create a knowledge exchange between the community and students with the aim for authentic collaboration through multiple collaborations and critical assessment of spaces to propose a humanitarian microscale intervention. Our group deemed it appropriate to keep communication between the stakeholders and the UP students separate, as to not allow any exploitation. Spatial investigations and proposals will be developed to offer a critical contribution to the socio-spatial issues of Melusi. The proposals for intervention will be documented and reflected on by the students and the community to understand the possible impact it can have in Melusi. Collaboration with various stakeholders will support the implementation of micro-scale interventions based on these proposals. While developing the concept and design thinking, we deemed it more important to start establishing relationships with collaborators. We made it very clear that we will work on a knowledge exchange basis with no compensation or method of payment as appreciation, but rather using knowledge as currency. We also decided that we will hand out certificates for all parties involved as something that the participants could add to their CVs and portfolios.
This slide shows the minutes of 5 meetings between the UP students and the New School of Hope, MIDO, and the Melusi community. The minutes were done using a digital co-design tool, being Google Docs, to collaboratively edit and add where need be. The 6 digital tools were chosen because they align with current digital trends and statistics. They've been proven successful in collaboration based on the group's past and current experiences in the academic environment, for example, the use of Google Workspace. They also provide a visual form of communication, which is often more effective for understanding. For example, the use of Miro was a great visual and collaborative tool and used amongst the group members, while SketchUp was an effective visual 3D tool where ideas were shared when working with the Melusi community. The analog tools are based on literature, such as The Placemaker's Guide to Building Community, an essay where architects highlighted advantages of co-design tools, which shows analog tools as a communal collaborative tool to stimulate ideas. They're mostly used for engagement between UP students and Melusi community. For example, the site meetings were the most efficient and effective in formally engaging ideas, whilst the interactive games and drawings helped to stimulate ideas amongst the community members in an informal manner.
After identifying our chosen co-design tools, we developed workshop concepts for future engagements.
In the beginning, we started developing a project program to try and stick to the times. The red indicates our first project program, and the green and blue indicates the latest revision.
The following precedents use materiality as a main criteria. We looked at the use of local materials, innovative construction techniques, as well as introducing collaboration from the local community. In this precedent, we explored the Cast and Hayes series done in multiple locations in Europe. The crate unlocked our design imagination to modularity and a plug-and-play system in creating a semi-permanent structure, as well as exploring the durability of a modular piece, like the crate. The perforated element also helped us explore the interface of inside-outside as well as private to semi-private environments. The high design but low skill labor work was also ideal in creating an equal space in a building process when working with the indigent community.
Next, we looked at Cylinder Kutle Kresh, looking at the incredible use of upcycled pallet wood, simply either using crates fixed together as a wall or floor, or as a crate disassembled and used to create new details. The use or found of donated materials to construct with, as well as utilizing vernacular knowledge of material. Community participation, involving as many people as possible, creates a sense of ownership of the structure and helps give the client a voice, ensuring the success of the project. And last, we looked at cross-ventilation, keeping the space cool.
These were the initial conceptual ideas generated by the UP students, inspired by precedents, and are characterized according to reusable materials, crates, ties, and timber that could be used for shading structures, seating, interactive walls, and vegetation.
The agenda was to introduce the overall co-design project to the Melusi leaders, being Hlakudi, the executive director of MIDO, and Mohale, another leader in Melusi. Secondly, we also wanted to understand the dynamics within the community before we began the co-design process with the Melusi community, and to understand potential authorship of the project. We discussed potential sites available for us to work on, which the 2 Melusi leaders clarified and raised concerns and limitations about.
Here we can see a site map where we looked at potential sites for our co-design process. First, we looked at MIDO, also known as Melusi Youth Development Center, shown in dotted blocks. As our Q1 group worked very closely with MIDO, so this place was a very applicable choice for our group. However, we also looked at potentially working with ECDs next to Mido, such as Happy Sabi Crèche and Rachai Preschool, helping to empower the children. We also looked at places like spaza shops, also known as little markets, where the food is bought, and also where a lot of gatherings takes place. And also we looked at places just outside Mido grounds for a potential bus stop, as there are a lot of buses and taxis going across several times a day. But after careful considerations, our group decided to stick to the Mido grounds. And so after confirming Mido as our site, we looked at the potential factors and parts of the site that could be considered for the co-design process and as design informants. I would like to take you through the different factors of Mido. To begin with, as stated in the slides above, I'd like to point out the constant uncontrolled vehicular routes as well as pedestrian routes indicated by the curved lines and the dotted lines respectively. Next, I would like to point out the main existing building of Mido, pointed in red, where all the kids are fed and extracurricular activities happen. And I would also like to indicate the caretaker's house, where Sam, the general manager of Mido, lives. We looked at the potential possibility to improve on this. Next, we looked at the original Mido stage indicated in yellow as a design informant. It was a very sentimental element to the people of Mido, as this was the first structure they put up in the Mido grounds. So we had a possibility of including the materials that were used in this stage in the design itself. Next, we looked at Topshop and Jojo Tank area, and we observed it to be not very well activated. And last, we looked at the existing shading nets. We noticed the positioning of these shading nets were very awkward in terms of the positioning, where it was placed in between the two buildings, creating dead spaces on either side. After the site explorations and analysis, a model with scale of 1 to 100 was built to be used as a means of analog tool to encourage the community's engagement in the co-design process of our intervention. Through this workshop, we were able to identify yet another factors that could not have been seen physically. We also had our first meeting with our potential stakeholder, where we looked at the possibility of the design and availability of the material. However, as shown on the spectrum, the NGO wanted to take full charge of the project from the beginning till the end, which did not align with our ethos, and so we had to go our separate ways.
The agenda for this meeting was between the UP students and the Mido leaders. It was to propose our initial conceptual sketches and receive their feedback, which indicated the needs of Mido. And lastly, we found out what Mido's future proposals were for the site. Through this meeting, our role as the architects was to facilitate an environment for Mido, which is in the middle of tenure and without tenure, while Mido became the primary authors as they exposed their needs and visions for the Mido grounds.
After our meeting with Glakudi, Thompson and Sam, 4 main needs and ideas were identified, namely the need for extension or shading, the need for a public interface activation, the need for extension of the educational facility, and the need for additional caretaker's house. Our capabilities only allowed us to consider the first 2 needs, which were then tied to the human needs matrix of Max Neef, as the need for identity and understanding and subsistence and participation. To give context to the identified needs, a broad overview of the human needs matrix is displayed here, and the relevant needs are highlighted. This also then ties in with our Q1 data collected. In order to successfully move from an authoritative figure to a facilitator at the end of our project, we first had to comprehend and acknowledge the existing multifaceted network of Mido and show where in this operational structure we can successfully plug into. Underneath the executive director, or Glakudi, falls the operational managers of programs, human resources, strategy, fundraising, and the general grounds manager. We can also analyze how the agendas of Mido is run and where there is a need for us to satisfy without disrupting the existing hierarchy. From this analysis, we agreed an optimal approach is to integrate within the Mido structure
through the Executive Director Glakudi. Considering our intended intervention is on the outside grounds of Mido, the General Manager, or SAM, also bared a lot of input and knowledge.
From the opportunities that Mido's principal, Glakudi, anticipated, our group identified 3 spaces within Mido that has a potential to satisfy the needs of the community. Number 1, which Emil and Apolele will explain. Number 2, which Grant and myself will explain, as well as number 3, which David and Ilanka will explain.
The first design exploration was a timber shading structure that would be situated in front of Mido and would serve as a stage, shading, and seating according to the needs identification. The shading would be made from woven material that can be seasonally replaced over time. The side walls would be previously used doors that can be opened and closed based on privacy needs.
These ideas were based on an incremental development approach as an affordable development typology, which is a response to material, money, resource, and labor scarcity. This approach allows for adaptability and self-expression, which ultimately leads to a sustainable structure, which meets the needs of the present without compromising the needs of the future. This approach allows for replication of the structure on both sides, each for different programs. The precedent, Half a House by Elemental, which shows the incremental development approach, where they built a raw unit that residents were able to add on and make it their own. This design would follow the same intention used in the precedent.
In parallel with Emil and Lele, Grant and I explored the opportunity for interventions around the existing tuck shop. We looked at extending the tuck shop roof over the existing fence as to create a sheltered bus stop for both the children during school drop-off hours and community during rainy days. By activating the fence, this will invite community members to make use of the tuck shop, therefore supporting Mido's business.
The shading device to the western side of the tuck shop, the top right, becomes a more intimate space where the community can enjoy their snacks, do some work, or external field workers can use as a meeting space before they begin their journeys in Melusi. The third aspect of this intervention placed emphasis on the need for identity, correlating to Max Neef's matrix. As this area becomes a stage for children as well as a stage for community members or church gatherings, incorporating existing access and aim that the intervention complement the access or desire line.
We looked at a research study done by Constanza Martinez that investigated stations as gateways, in-lane stops, equitable design, design for safety, as well as integrated vehicle and platform designs.
Our next possible intervention came out of the need for a flexible architecture system and program. We intended a space where the roof can be adjusted according to the type of program that was going to take place in the Milo grounds, such as a space for kids' physical activities or a church gathering. We also looked at innovative ways of construction using minimum amount of tools and materials, providing means to expand in sections according to their needs. So we looked at a precedent called Shade of Meaning done by MIT students in Kenya. The roof was constructed on a simple concrete bedding with rods and adjustable clamps that was used as scaffoldings that could be removed or adjusted. They took advantage of this material to adjust the angle of the roof according to the wind direction as well as sunlight angle.
The agenda was to present 3 different ideas to the Mido leaders and then stand back and let them critique our work and suggest where we can change the designs. At this point, since our UP group had pre-established an envisioned master plan of ideas, we became primary authors alongside Mido as a way to stimulate a new perspective to the future of the Mido grounds.
CoDesign tool was used to allow for visual aid to the community members. The one that is shown here is called the SketchUp View application. This tool was used as one of the ways to discuss the design remotely without having to visit the site physically, as Mido has an iPad to manage their social media. We loaded SketchUp Viewer and gave participants a link to access the digital model. This assisted in giving more easier visual aid for the community members, faster communication, and also encouraging the community to take part in the design process.
We used social media as an effective means of updating stakeholders. Firstly, we used Facebook as an initial outreach to stakeholders, but yet we did encounter some complexities on this platform. Next, we used Instagram mainly as a marketing tool to promote our main social media platform, YouTube. YouTube was deemed as the most successful and efficient tool, as this was a formal one-way communication channel between potential parties. We can also then tie into the existing Unit for Urban Citizenship YouTube channel as a representative of this module.
We developed a stakeholder procurement document, which we use to professionally approach stakeholders.
Trailer Rentals at Mayhem, an ISO build, is a company specializing in trailer rentals, manufacturing trailers, along with other forms of vehicular cages, and also specializing in maintenance of these trailers. This was one of our first sponsors we could get, where they kindly helped us by lending us the trailer for 2 days for us to transport donated wood for the structure.
O2 Wood is situated close by from the informal settlement, where they were incredibly generous and donated all the discarded timber seen in the slide. The majority of the timber was warped or defected in some way, preventing them from selling the timber to anyone. We were stunned by their offer and managed to utilize a lot of the timber in creative ways despite its condition.
NJR Steel is a steel company situated in Pretoria West, a 2-minute drive from Melusi. NJR Steel kindly donated large used truck tires. Nyumba Mobile Homes and Offices was one of our stakeholders that contacted us through our Facebook post. They donated these composite wall panels.
Our next stakeholder is Gallo Precast. We visited Gallo Precast in Pretoria North and met the owner, Claudio. Claudio is very passionate and his work reflects that. He showed us the process of precast manufacturing. He believes, as we do, that a drastic change within the built environment is needed, and it starts with the new generation of designers. This also pushed him to form a potential standing relationship with the university to ensure this change. He then graciously donated 3 concrete footings and 5 steel brackets. We implemented these footings as multifunctional elements, as you will see later in our photos, that deemed not only as a structural element but as well as seating space for the users of the tuck shop.
York Timbers referred us to Rotterdam. They kindly supplied us with fasteners, screws and concrete anchors.
The Tshwane University of Technology kindly donated their trailer full of tools, chairs and tables. To subsequently manage the quantity of tools, we then made this equipment roster for checking in and out tools.
Our next stakeholder was the Colour Shop, a small paint shop in Pretoria East. We approached them not expecting a lot, yet their generosity came in abundance when they donated almost 30 litres of vibrant paint.
The workshop was held between the UP students and the community members, where the community shared their ideas, needs and visions regarding interventions that could take place on the Maido grounds. One of the aims of the community workshop was to get the broader community of Melusi's involvement in the design process rather than just the authorship of leaders of Maido. The 3 images show a scan of 3 floor plans, each with different ideas or sticky notes that indicated whether the participants agreed in pink, whether they chose maybe in green, and disagreed in yellow. On the sticky notes, each person wrote why they made their decision. A common expressed desire amongst the community, which informed their decision-making between the presented concepts, was the need for a multi-programmatic space that was flexible enough to serve many functions that could satisfy the needs of the community. What was interesting was that the needs and ideas expressed by Maido leaders and the needs expressed by the Melusi community aligned, which were number 1, the extensions of shading and gathering space, and number 2, the activation of the tuck shop and public interface.
Through this community engagement, we experienced great hope and pride within the Maido community. We also observed the need and willingness to learn and develop their own future, and this then creates the potential for any intervention within the Maido community to be maintained and succeed in its intention.
An interactive models, as shown on the video, its models with modular placeholders seen as white rectangular pieces were used by the community members for their ideas for the design.
After reflecting on the adult workshop, we deemed it necessary to consult and incorporate the main users of Maido, namely the children. The focus group shifted to a teenage bracket, being between 6 and 16 years of age. We used sticky notes as a tool for the children to express their feelings and ideas. We printed different interactive tire designs where the children could choose between gardening, seating, and playing structures. To no surprise, the play structures were the most popular and, in our opinion, the most essential in this after-school premise. So we decided from this data to rather build a play structure and leave the two more practical elements to be filled in later if needed. We could plug onto the existing structure of the tuck shop, we first conducted a superficial condition assessment of the surrounding grounds, floors, walls, and roofs. Later, a deeper investigation was conducted of all building materials such as steel and timber, and the tuck shop was deemed suitable for us to latch and expand onto.
Looking at the utilization of shading devices to create spatial encapsulation, we designed 3 different kits of pergolas that attach onto the existing workshop. We also explored the utilization of tires.
Technical design explorations based on donated timber from O2 wood, which show the different uses of various sizes of timber and potential joining techniques. Since the timber is not structurally reliable, composite column beam connections and cross-bracing ideas were explored as a means to make up for this.
We also explored ways of utilizing another found material, being the nylon straps used by O2 wood to tie down large bundles of sawn material onto trucks for transport. We looked at ways of weaving the material, incorporating vernacular craftsmanship. These weaving techniques can be implemented in many different patterns, creating variation.
We then started exploring with maquettes to look at the materiality considerations, detailed connections, and joinings.
The following animation shows how the authorship shifted throughout our first design phases. The size of the bubble shows the amount of authority different parties have.
After reflecting on the design's explorations, the team discovered that not enough attention was paid to the fence's interaction and activation. Therefore, we deemed it necessary to consult another precedent. The On a Fence project's aim was to transform an existing fence from a closed-off barrier to an inviting character. The precedent incorporates a variety of activities along the fence, similar to what our project tries to achieve. The incorporation of programs on either side of the fence becomes a bridge between the adjacent sides, which is an important approach our project at MIDO aims to do.
To physically express the concept of knowledge exchange, we decided to design our structure by showcasing different types of tectonics.
After obtaining some material, we started building one-to-one scale models of our joinery details, exploring simple ways of constructing that clearly demonstrate how the materials are articulated.
Here you can see different explorations of column beam connections, as well as their assembly process.
This is our proposed perspective of our envisioned implementation of phase 1 of the building, showing the dynamic seating options for both inside and outside of MIDO, as well as emphasizing the tensile nature of our proposed structure in contrast to the stereotomic and closed-off facades of the tuck shop.
Here you can also see how we decided to utilize and plug onto the fence. We also started looking at the timber that was donated to us and started specifying sizes. These are additional perspectives that show the bridging of activities and space from inside to outside the gates of MIDO, which the precedent discussed earlier illustrates. This bridge is made possible through the timber shading structures attached onto the fence.
Our initial budget review was divided into material descriptions and tools and consumables. This was our revised budget review, and it includes our subsistence that we used throughout the project.
Before and during our building process, there were some challenges that arose. First, we analyzed our preconceived ideas that we thought would arise as challenges. For example, resource misappropriation on site. Yet, this didn't happen, and it taught us that we slightly misjudged the characters of the people of Melusi. Then we discussed real challenges that arose during the live build, like the struggle for authority and authorship within the collaboration of MIDO, where Sam the groundskeeper wanted full authority over our decision-making process, yet we chose to follow the existing hierarchy. Luckily, we adapted from this. Another challenge that we didn't suspect was the imposition of the South African Police Service during our time there, as they started an eviction process across from MIDO. This heightened the community's suspicions as to why our group was busy working in Melusi. Yet, this solidified our preliminary decision to rather build within private grounds instead of on public open ground. As mentioned, the hierarchy of the final say in our decision-making process shifted a bit, where Sam tried to claim main author over everything, yet we tried to accommodate his need to have a voice, while still following the existing hierarchy and reporting to Glakuri. New members were introduced to our project, namely Cujo as main builder and construction teacher, as well as other MIDO members that assisted and advised.
This slide showcases a typical day on site, beginning with site meetings and discussing our daily run-through and intention for the day. We began to formalize the design into drawings to ensure legibility on site. This ensures everyone working on the project has a good understanding of the intent. Of course, through the co-design process, a lot changes on site when the building begins to materialize. Therefore, updated plans were produced afterwards to show how the project was actually built. We stuck to a grid just to ensure simplicity of the build.
This section shows the side view of our co-design. On your right-hand side, we see an existing tuck shop highlighted in grey, and our intervention on the left. We kept the scale of the project at a standard that was achievable within 3 weeks, and we made sure to extend the roof towards the public, so that not only it was accessible to the MIDO, but also public as bus seatings. The roof pitch was done in a way to provide light to the space, functioning as a clerestory.
The following perspectives are comparisons of the MIDO tuck shop facades and space before and after the collaborative intervention. Here we can see the original southern perspective. Here we see that the addition of the shading structure allowed for shading next to the tuck shop, but also a 1.5 meter bus stop, which shelters children and adults exiting the bus. Adding to the bus stop, the new benches that plug into the existing bollards provided seating which complements the bus stop program. In addition, by painting the tuck shop walls with creative patterns, it attracted children to the space and activated a new program like the signing in the area for children. This was the original northern perspective of the tuck shop area. Here we took advantage of the large wall facing the open space of MIDO, where children mostly play and gather, by painting the wall with the rainbow design and logo. Painting the rainbow encouraged the children of MIDO to form their own appropriation of their tuck shop. The MIDO logo was also painted on top of the rainbow as a form of identification. The tire dome further emphasized this and provided the start of a playground which improves their motor-oriented skills.
Looking at the massing composition, we could successfully offset the existing stereotomic structure with a beautiful translucent tectonic structure. We could also bridge the boundary and create a relationship with the community through the fence by extending and reaching out towards the general public. By bridging the boundary, we utilize the fence, as the fence becomes interactive and is activated by plugging the columns and benches onto the harsh facade. For shelter and security, the extending bus stop shelter provides shelter and safety for the general public. It acts as an invitation to the business and people of MIDO.
As you have seen on the video, this slide explains some of the process we went through in the construction itself. Though it was a time of many challenges and problems, through the co-design along with Kujo and Sam and other community members, it was a time of true knowledge exchange, learning and partaking in the priceless interaction with the community and also amongst our group members. As per our co-design intention, this was intended to be a place of rest and a moment of pause in the midst of uncontrolled and busy traffic. And while having a conversation about the possible name of the co-design intervention, with the community members, we decided on the name Emma. Emma in Sepedi, one of the 11 official languages in South Africa, means to stop and or wait, and also a moment of inactivity or pause, which aligns with our intention.
Here we will begin to unpack some of the photos taken once the build was completed. This photo highlights the 1.5 meter overhang that was done on the roadside of the build, creating a shaded space for passers-by.
In this image, you can see the bridging and utilizing of the fence or boundary. Here, you can see the fence benches that integrates the harsh boundary, namely the fence, and being utilized by children.
Next, the reception space of the tuck shop was created out of a wall panel being damaged and then removed, and this created a void. Instead of closing this panel or fixing it up, we activated the space for a much needed reception area for Mido visitors, as well as a registration area for the after school and feeding program. As the tuck shop was existing but not active, our vision was that our intervention will activate the tuck shop and in return also bring more financial security to Mido. Our design was informed by the users of the space. For example, our column spacing, although uneven, was informed by the user's circulation space needed. Evident in this photo also is our stakeholder stickers on the left, giving credit to the vast generosity we experienced throughout our live build.
As mentioned previously, this is the image of the rainbow wall with the Mido logo as a form of the children's appropriation and an identification symbol for Mido. We did have difficulty painting this wall because many people wanted to help and paint too. This was difficult without the illustration becoming untidy, and the scaling of the lettering initially was confusing, but we managed to figure it out.
This tire dome, as you can see on the picture, was one of the co-design structures that was made along with our shading structure. It was yet another opportunity we could take on with the available materials that we had. The intention is through the construction booklet that we will speak later. This form of structure can be multiplied several times.
In these images, you can see that our group did not finish the roof sheeting. This provided ample opportunity for the community to plan their extension. These images showcase the different parts of Library of Tectonics. The community can observe the level of material, skill, and detail required. Different steel brackets were required for the 4-part composite columns. The steel brackets were fixed to the donated concrete seaters with concrete anchors. In addition, we provided Mido with a Library of Tectonics in form of a building manual.
Within this building manual, we provided typical section details and exploited isometric details of how the components were assembled. In this instance, we highlight the 2-piece column detail we used along the fence line, attaching column to existing fence. It also demonstrates how the beam and rafter are fixed, and lastly, the purlin in the sheeting. On this page, we see the precast concrete foundation fixed to a steel square hollow tube and then to the composite timber column. Again, fixing the members together with threaded rods, washers, and lock nuts. This fixing technique showcases great versatility in its ability to be measured and cut to the desired length, as opposed to a set-sized screw. This detail shows how 40x40mm timber battens, typically used as purlins in roof construction, can be used as columns. Due to our lack of larger, more structural timber elements, we devised a plan to utilize the timber we did have to our advantage. This exploration allowed for a beautiful connection, demonstrating the possibilities of found materials that might otherwise be unfit to be used as individual members for a column. Again, by using threaded steel rods, washers, and lock nuts, along with the donated ties, we were able to construct a very simple, self-supporting play structure for the children to play on. And lastly, using the existing concrete bollards in our favor to allow benches to be placed under the newly shaded bus stop. We fixed a 230x40mm piece of timber to the bollard and ground the edges of the bolt in hopes that the timber wouldn't be stolen. Both of these interventions are easily replicable if broken or stolen.
During our live build, we discovered rules and tips that we would like to pass on to the next groups that would be doing live builds in the CoDesign studio. These included tips such as plan cross-bracing beforehand, the fact that you have to expect things to not always be straight or line up, and that you have to switch the welding goggles on before you use it. Nearing the end of our building process, different parties started commenting on the co-designed work. These quotes so beautifully framed and finished the knowledge exchange concept. For example, the co-build process allowed it to be replicable by Cujo and invited further extensions by the authors of Mido and general public.
A factor which was very important to us was not just generating change within Mido, but with the external community as well, as observed through our bus stop extension. Ronnie, a passerby, came into Mido and analysed our structure in awe. Our physical intervention visualized to him what is possible with repurposed or even discarded material. One of our favorite quotes is, "Your structure is teaching me a lot, and the best thing is, you did not just build and teach yourselves, but our people here. You bring them pride."
As a way to acknowledge the stakeholders, volunteers, and MAD as a whole, and connect these involved parties, our CoDesign group hosted an opening ceremony that took place yesterday, where we officially presented the finished product.
These next few slides show the opening ceremony that we organized for the stakeholders and community participants as a means to acknowledge and appreciate their contributions. Here you can see the building manual in action being observed by a stakeholder, with the technical and assembly details, as well as the acknowledgements and group members.
To show appreciation to the community and stakeholder participants, we extended certificates of participation. Thank you for your time. As a group, we really enjoyed and appreciated the opportunities that were given to us by so many people.